with any of you sons of bitches. Got anything else to say? Now's the fucking time!
Welcome to the Jake Brown Podcast. Oh, thank you for that standing ovation. Very much appreciated. If you listened to last night's show, I was having a little bit of, I don't want to say like technical difficulties. I'm working with some new equipment, and my sound settings, which there are multiple, were a little bit off. So I apologize for that. When I went back and listened to it this morning, I was like, oh, yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. That background music was much louder on the playback than it was in real time in me old headphones. So luckily, it was some classical music, which has a lot of quiet sections, but some of those louder sections were definitely much louder than I intended them for them to be. So if you survived the entire hour, muchas gracias. I'm not doing any background music tonight, so it shouldn't be a problem. And I mess around with my settings a little bit more today, so I think I got everything figured out going forward. I really like this new setup I got, by the way. It's pretty sweet. It's a lot sleeker, a lot smaller on my little work desk, and what's really cool is I just record straight to an SD card, and then I can just upload right to Spotify, which is pretty sick. All right, but enough about that. Tonight, and it is Saturday night, and I haven't got a chance to talk any motorcycle racing because obviously I've been a fucking lazy ass for 4 or 5 months, and I didn't do any shows. World Superbike and MotoGP both concluded their seasons. It's been a few weeks now for World Superbike, and MotoGP, which was an unbelievable end to the season. Not just the final round. I mean, really, all season was unbelievable. They ended last weekend. I want to start first with a little bit of World Superbike. How good is Toprick? I mean, how good is Toprick? He switches from Yamaha, where he had won a world championship. He was riding the life out of that R1. That R1 could do no more. No one on earth could get that bike, maybe outside of Marc Marquez or Pecco or Martin from MotoGP. If those guys were to come down and get on that R1, maybe they are the only ones, maybe, who could get more out of that R1 than Toprick. He had maxed out the performance of that bike, and he was still winning races, but he was just so down on power. He was so down on power compared to the Ducatis, and even from a motor standpoint compared to BMW. Now, BMW had a whole host of other issues, which, their riders at the time, the factory riders for the last season, Vandermark and Scott Redding, just for whatever reason, they could not overcome them. And, Garrett Gerloff was probably BMW's best rider last year, and he was on a satellite team. So Toprick jumped ship from Yamaha to what I guess a lot of people would consider to be not as good as a Ducati, the BMW. Okay? But shit ton of power, fast in a straight line. The question would be, could Toprick put the power where the power needed to be, which is to the ground, without spinning up too much? How is he going to be in the turns? How's he going to be on the brakes? I mean, let's be honest. The dude's always a demon on the brakes. Just if you have never watched Toprick Razgatlioglu, and you can Google it, or just Google World Superbike and find Toprick for the BMW's factory team. Find some YouTube videos of Toprick braking into literally any turn. It's unbelievable. He spends more time on the front tire than he does with both tires on the ground. I swear to God. It's a thing of beauty to watch. And, me, I was thinking, okay, the bike is fast. It's not like BMW isn't throwing money at their program. Like, BMW wants to win. BMW has deep pockets. BMW has a lot of engineers. There's a lot of people behind the scenes putting in a lot of work, and they are there to win the world title. They're not there to get second. They're not there to get third. They are there to win. So they opened up the old checkbook, and they paid the best rider in that series to be on their bike. And the result, magic. Right there. That's the result. Yep. Can we get some more? Let's get a few more. That right there is the result of just being able to spend some money and to just throw resources at the best rider and then saying, go do what you got to do to win. And once Toprick got up to speed, at one point he had won 13 straight races, which is the most ever in World Superbike. And honestly, the only reason that streak ended was because of that, terrifying crash that he had in France, where, you talk about luck being on your side. The saying, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Toprick was lucky in that crash. He was extremely lucky that he didn't get killed or paralyzed or severely maimed. He was able to walk away from that crash, missed the following 2 rounds after that. He saw essentially, a 60-plus point lead cut almost in half. Bulaga did what he had to do, which was continuing to podium and score massive chunks of points. But when Toprick came back, it was like he never missed a beat. I think he had 3 second place finishes, race 1, race 2, and in the Superpole race, all second places in Aragon, and he essentially never looked back after that. Just seeing the way that he meshed with that bike and just seeing like how happy he was. The last season, there was definitely what appeared from, me as a fan watching from half a world away. You could definitely see frustration in his eyes after some of those races where he was riding on the absolute limit of what a superbike could do. And he was just outpowered by Ducati. And that's, I don't know any other way to put it. He was just outpowered by Ducati. And I felt bad for him. It is what it is. That's kind of the nature of the beast in racing. I think it's the nature of the beast in all sports. Everyone is doing, in any given sport, every team is doing whatever they can to get a leg up on their competition. And, Alvaro Bautista and that Ducati, they were unbeatable last year. And you could just see the frustration on Toprick's face, in my opinion. And, it's like there comes a point where the R1 Yamaha was not going to make that bike any better. It was about as competitive as it could be, and it just simply wasn't good enough to win the title. It just wasn't. And he did win 1 title with Yamaha, but Ducati kept making strides, and it just seemed like Yamaha just kind of stayed stagnant. And, evolution, baby. Yamaha didn't evolve, Ducati did. And, last year, we all saw the frustration on his face, and he needed more motor, and that was the seemed to be the biggest thing. It's not like the Yamaha doesn't handle well. It handles very well. That's always been any Yamaha strong suit. It's why I picked R6s to race for so many years, because I love the way that they handled in the turns. And I had ridden other bikes, but there's just something about that R6 chassis. And, I even had an R1 at one point, not the current generation, but the previous generation. But man, I just really love the way that it felt. And, but the feeling only can get you so far, especially at that level. Every rider that's on that grid is capable, depending on the bike that they have under them, They're all competitive. They're all insanely competitive, individually, but, the teams are competitive. And you're splitting hairs here. You look at qualifying times from first to last might be 2 seconds between everybody. Like, that's not a lot of room for error. We're talking tenths of a second here, thousandths of a second in some cases, from maybe being on the front row in qualifying and having a legit shot at either scoring a podium or winning, to you're on the third, fourth, fifth, sixth row sometimes. You could be a half second off. You're on row 5. Like, a lot of those tracks that World Superbike goes to, they're tight tracks. They're very tight tracks that are tough to pass on. And if you don't qualify well, your chances of winning are going to be difficult. And watching Toprak just get outmotored round after round after round last year, clearly it took its toll. He jumped ship to BMW. Motor was not a problem, so at that point, he just had to get as quickly as possible up to speed from a chassis standpoint, from a setup, suspension standpoint. Once they got the electronics dialed in for him, and, you could tell once he started getting comfortable on that bike, that's a wrap. That's a wrap. It's a wrap. Toprak absolutely dominated. He absolutely dominated. And had he not had that crash, who's to say he wouldn't have lost a race, after that 13th, going into whatever the last 4 rounds of the season. I honestly think he probably could have swept all of them. I really do. Like, he was riding that good. And obviously after a huge crash like that, you're going to be a little gun shy right away. But, that's the difference between those guys, and especially Toprak. Toprak being gun shy after a massive crash that, could, arguably could have killed him. Him being gun shy is getting 3 second place finishes right out of the gate, and he was still competitive. He was fighting for the lead. He led some laps in all 3, at Aragon that weekend. He was right there. He was right there. And that weekend got him back on his groove. And, the rest, as they say, is history. So, looking forward to next year. Bautista decided not to retire. He came into the season definitely banged up from last year. He was not at full strength. He did not get a chance to really test much during the offseason, and it showed. It took him quite a while. He still rode good, but he had a hard time qualifying. And a lot of his grid positions were just way down the order, and you waste so many laps fighting through traffic, to try to catch the guys who are at the front. And in a nutshell, that's kind of how Bautista's season went. It seems like he was just always too far down the grid, to really have an impact over the course of the whole season. Do I think that's going to happen next year? I don't. But, the problem is his teammate, and that's his problem. That, Bulaga is going to be a big problem for Bautista, when they're on the same machinery. Bulaga, as a rookie this season, finished second in the championship. He won some races. He really just adjusted very well to that superbike. And it was so much fun. From the very first race 1 out in Phillip Island, when he won, and I was like, are you shitting me right now? Like, this rookie, and it wasn't just that he won, like, he destroyed people. Like, he absolutely destroyed people. And I was like, shit, if he does this all year, like, that's a wrap for everybody. But, I knew Toprak would come around. I think everyone knew Toprak would come around at some point. At least we were all hoping, I think if I was betting money on whether Toprak, was going to win the world championship, no, I would not have bet money that he was going to win. I thought he could definitely finish in the top 3 to 5. Regardless of what bike he's on, who knows? Even put him on that Honda, I think he could probably still do very well on it. But I knew he would get up to speed at some point. I just wondered how many rounds were going to be wasted where he was trying to get up to speed. And it really didn't take him long. And once things clicked, holy shit did they click. I mean, they really, really, really clicked. Out of 30 starts, he had 18 victories. Like, are you, that includes the two full length races and then the one half distance Super Bowl race for every round. 18 wins is unreal. It's unreal. 13 straight at one point. Not even Johnny Ray did that. When he was absolutely, the king of World Superbike, winning 6 straight world titles. I don't think he ever won 13 straight races. He definitely won a lot of consecutive races, but no one has done what Toprak has done this year. And the fact that he was on a completely different bike, going from that cross plane to just I guess the quote unquote standard inline 4. A lot more power, but arguably a lot harder to control. He works some magic, and not just him, that crew, all the engineers, the crew chief, everyone, everyone at BMW, they were all in on Toprak. And hey, his teammate Vandermark, he had a hell of a season too. I think he won a race. He had a lot of podiums. I mean, you talk about someone who has just been injured, time after time after time. And not just little injuries here and there, like massive leg breaks, okay, where he's out months at a time. And then he comes back and has more horrific crashes and breaks more bones. It's like time and time again, this poor guy is just like beating his body up to death. And, this season, for the most part, he was healthy for the entire season. And, it was nice to be able to, I think a lot of people forget how talented Vandermark is. The guy's insanely talented. And, there's, if you follow all the Twitter chatter and all that, a lot of people talking shit saying that he doesn't deserve his ride, that, maybe it should go to someone else. And, he's, I'll concede the argument that he's just not healthy, but he's every bit as talented as, everyone else out there. And when healthy, he can run with anyone. Okay. He's won races on the Yamaha. He's won races on the BMW. I'm glad that he was out there for majority of this season, and I'm looking forward to next year when hopefully he will be I think arguably finally 100% fit coming into a season. Let's see who else. I honestly I expected a little more from Garrett Gerloff, and he seemed to really, I think the season that he had in 23, I thought that he was going to be, fighting for podiums every single race. And I don't, just for whatever reason, that just didn't happen. But when the Bonneville Action BMW team folded, or when they announced that this was going to be their last season with BMW, and Gerloff was, initially, rumored to be going here, rumored to be going there, and he's eventually with the Kawasaki Pacetti Racing. Once that announcement came out that they were going, it's like all the pressure was just off him all of a sudden. And, I think he got a podium. He was fighting for podiums, fighting for wins. I may be talking out of my ass here. Did he have a pole position? He may have had a pole position. So it's like with anything, you eliminate the pressure and you can kind of exhale a little bit. You just, you ride more loose, you're more relaxed, and, he didn't have that pressure on him of, I need to perform, he representing BMW, I got to perform. That was taken away from him. And yeah, he was still riding for BMW, but there was no future there, once that announcement hit. And I don't know, man, he just seemed, even Scott Redding seemed like he was a lot more loose, and he just seemed to be riding a little better there toward toward the end of that season. The Hondas were a lot more consistent, so it was cool to see them up there. I don't know. I can't figure out what is up with those Hondas. They have two very capable riders, and the bike is fast as shit in a straight line. But for whatever reason, as soon as that bike tips over into turns, it just doesn't work as well as you would expect it to. And I don't know, like they definitely got more consistent as the season went on, and there were, it seemed like they were always in the top five constantly in the top five. So it was, yeah, it's cool to see that, but fuck, man, that's Honda. Any series, I don't care whether it's Moto America, World Superbike, BSB, any of the series in Italy and Spain. In Japan Superbike, Australian Superbike, the better Honda is, I just feel like the better the series is. Like Honda is just one of those big brands that I want to see up front fighting for wins, and they're getting closer. From a World Superbike standpoint, they're not quite there yet, but that gap is definitely coming down. So, congrats to them. I know that, settling for wherever it is that they finished in the Constructors' Championship, not good enough. They are there to win. But, from my point of view, like, it was cool seeing them running up front more consistently. And hopefully they can improve on this season next year. And I don't see why they can't. Jesus, they have all the resources you could ever dream of. So, sky's the limit. It's just a matter of can they engineer their way back to the front. And we shall see. So I'm definitely excited for next year. I think World Superbike, I think the two factory Ducati riders, plus Top Rig, Vandermark. And I'm really curious because Sam Lowe's had a hell of a year this year for Kawasaki. However, Kawasaki's now gone. Their engine's not gone, but him and XL Bassani are with the Bimota Kawasaki, or Bimota powered by Kawasaki. So the ZX10 motor in that Bimota chassis, and then the whole Bimota crew, however they're, whatever it is. I don't really understand how all that works. Lowe's rode awesome this year. I was kind of hoping that, the ZX10 was going to be back when I heard that the Bimota was taken over. But him and Bassani had good praise for that new bike. So I don't know, like maybe that'll catapult them to new heights. So either way, worldsbk.com. If you're not a fan, if you don't know anything about it, a little bit, these are production-based motorcycles that some of the most badass riders on earth are racing at tracks all around the world, but mostly in Europe. You could literally go to Motorsports of Olympia and you could buy an R1 and you could throw tens upon tens upon tens upon tens upon tens of thousands of dollars at it, and you could build your own World Superbike spec race bike, and then you could pay engineers, you could pay data people, you could pay mechanics, okay? And you can have them help you get this bike all tuned up, suspension people, and then you can go race in World Superbike if you're fast enough. So, I would start out at the club scene first and work your way up, but those are the kind of bikes that these guys are out there racing. So, a lot of people are very brand loyal. I'm always deep down, I'm always pulling for Yamaha. I'm always going to be a Yamaha slut. It's just the way that I am. I'm unapologetically blue, and I don't care. But I love all those bikes. The Ducatis are beautiful. Okay? The BMW has a beautiful bike. Some people don't like those wings on it. I don't care. It's a beautiful bike. The Kawasaki is a beautiful bike. The Honda is a beautiful bike. Just from a fan standpoint, those bikes are just cool as hell to see going around the track. And I've been lucky enough. I've got to I raced an AMA round, and this is many, 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 many years ago. But it was a joined round with World Superbike out at Miller Motorsports Park in Salt Lake City, Tooele, Utah. And seeing those bikes up close and in person, it's not just the sight, it's the sound of them. It's the smells, as they're going by at 200 miles an hour. It's just, you feel those things in your chest when they go by. It is so cool. It was cool then. It's cool now. I will forever be a fan, of all these bikes. And honestly, man, I'm a fan of all these riders from first place to last place. That even the test riders that come out there, on some of those rounds, those guys are all incredible riders. So if you ever have a chance to go watch some World Superbike, wherever you are, they will come somewhat close to you, no matter where you are. So go check them out. Definitely worth it. You got kids, man, bring your kids. They will get an absolute kick out of it. And if you can't get to World Superbike, go check out a Moto America race. If you can't get to a Moto America race, there are local club races that, there's some of those bikes out there are hot garbage, but the guys that race the big classes, the money classes, up here, we called it Formula Ultra. That's the fastest bikes and, quote unquote, the baddest riders, it's cool as hell to watch. Even at the club level, to see those bikes, it's cool. It's cool to watch. So I would encourage anyone to go check it out. But check out the website. I have zero affiliation with any of these teams, with any of these riders, or with any of these organizations. I am just a fan of motorcycle racing. I have been forever, and I will be forever until I die. Until I die. And I try to kind of spread this gospel as much as I can, because I want this sport to grow, and I want to see more and more people at all these events, whether it's at the national series in this country, Moto America, World Superbike, or MotoGP. As far as I'm concerned, two wheels is where it's at. It's way better racing, way more competitive. You're not sitting there for 5 hours or whatever, like in Formula One, which no one passes, which is just stupid. These races are a set amount of laps. It's typically about 45 minutes. I'm telling you, it's awesome. So just check it out. All right, that's World Superbike. I want to move on now to MotoGP. From start to finish, this was an awesome season. And I think coming into the season, first before I get into that, I did one word to describe each factory, okay? So we have Honda, and this is going from last to first as far as the Constructors' Championship is concerned, okay? Honda. My one word to describe Honda would be distant. I don't know what is going on at Honda. It just seems like they are spinning their wheels in the mud while everyone else is improving. It seemed like in off-season testing coming into this year, it seemed like Joan Mir was, a little more optimistic about some of the changes that they had made. Well, that optimism did not result in in anything positive during the season. It seemed like every time there was a MotoGP race, Joan Mir was crashing, and it was tough to watch because he is one hell of a rider, but oh my God, has he gotten beat up since he has got on that Honda. I don't know. after this season, they did more testing. Alicia Spargo, who has retired from full-time racing, is now one of Honda's test riders, and mixed reviews. And then Joan Mir just flat out said it. He essentially said, "I expected more." That's not a promising sign. It's not promising. So I don't know what Honda's doing. Right now, they are just bringing up the rear. I think their best rider was Johan Zarco, and he wasn't even on the Repsol factory team. But they're all on the same bikes because they are trying to get as much data as possible to try to make that bike as good as it can get as quickly as they can get it there. Because right now they are just not competitive at all. If it's raining, the rain is a great equalizer. That's a little different. But let's be honest, no one is tuning in to watch people race in the rain. And you flex your muscles when it's dry. And right now Honda has no muscle. Honda's a little anemic. And like I said earlier, with the with the World Superbike and all these series around the world, when Honda is good, the series is better. And right now in MotoGP, Honda is bad, and the series is still good. I feel like, even though it's a little top heavy, and I'll get to that in a second. Like, the series is good. It's compelling. The racing is good. Despite some other stuff that's going on, but it would be better if Honda and the next factory, the racing would be better if Honda and Yamaha were up front. So my one word to describe Yamaha for this season, I would say, is progress. They have definitely made progress. Quartararo and Alex Rins were steadily improving, and by the end of the year, they were both getting into Q2. I don't know. Can I say consistently? It seemed like Quartararo was there more so. Alex Rins was flirting with Q2. He'd kind of make the cut, that 8th, 9th, 10th spot, or he'd kind of be the top of the Q1. But it seemed like they're throwing everything at that bike right now. They're trying different chassis. They're trying different motors. They're trying different aero. What sucks though for Yamaha, and I think it's going to be a big deal for them going into 2025. They only had 2 bikes on the grid. Like, that's it. 2 bikes. When you compare that to Ducati, who has 8 bikes on the grid, just think of the amount of data that Ducati is able to get across the board from different levels of riders, different riding styles or techniques, and they can take that data and then make their bike better. Right now, Yamaha has Quartararo and they have Alex Rins, 2 absolutely phenomenal riders. And, I'm a steadfast believer that had Suzuki not closed shop, Alex Rins would have won a world championship by now. He was that good on that Suzuki. And it seemed like he was getting to the point where you couldn't stop him. And, God, talk about a career killer, And then he goes to the Honda, and then that was just a shit show, and it's like, and he still won a race on the Honda. Like, he won in Austin on that Honda, not even on the factory Honda. Rins is unbelievable when he's healthy. And he was banged up this year from that broken leg that he had last year. It was still giving him problems this year. Hopefully he'll be 100% fit going into 25. And I'm hoping that, apparently, they're building a V4. I don't know. Progress. I give Yamaha. They have definitely made progress. Are they close to running up front? No. In the rain? Sure, but anyone can run up front in the rain, if you're a good rider. But again, nobody cares about what you do in the rain. These factories flex their muscles in the dry, and that's what matters. And right now, Yamaha is not close to winning, but they sure as hell are not where Honda was, and they are not where they were last year, and they are not where they were at the beginning of this season. They have come a long ways since the beginning of this season. And, I think Quartararo had some top fives. Like, he's getting closer. And, when Rins is healthy and he's going to figure this bike out, I guess the good thing is that, it's going to be a different bike. It seems like every single time they go out, they're trying so many different parts. It does help, though, that they are switching, or not switching. I should say that, Pramac Ducati switched away from Ducati to Yamaha, so at least there will be 4 Yamahas on the grid next season. That's just an extra 2 bikes for extra data, more people to test. I don't know. These guys are out there to win. They're out there to try to win races. They don't always want to be testing stuff, but when you're on a satellite team, sometimes that's your job. And Oliveira and Jack Miller are now on the Yamaha satellite team. And, they're going to be testing some stuff here and there. But, hopefully between the 4 of them, they can get that Yamaha closer to the front. Because I know Quartararo, and I was glad that he didn't jump ship, honestly. He had a chance to go to Aprilia. Aprilia threw some money at him. Yamaha threw more money at him. And he stayed, and I get why he stayed, but I'm happy that he stayed because Yamaha needs someone like Quartararo, and they need someone like Alex Rins who can push that bike back up to the front where they belong, in my opinion. And I think they will get there, and I think 25 is going to be big for. Honestly, I think 25 can be big for all 4 of those Yamahas. I don't think the satellite bikes are going to be super competitive, but I think they're going to get a lot of quality work in during any race weekend that they are at, and it's only going to help Yamaha in the big picture. All right, the next factory, Aprilia. My one word to describe them for the season: average. I don't know. Like, they're just in the middle of everything. They're just there. I mean, you could argue they're almost a little forgettable. The beautiful bike. Espargaro won a race. Or no, I'm sorry. Did he not win a race? Oh, geez. And I have stats. I just don't feel like going through them all right now. I know Aprilia, either him or Maverick. I think Maverick won the race. But either way, Aprilia got a victory this season, but for the most part, they're just like in the middle. It seemed like they were just always like in the middle, or kind of, at the bottom of that, kind of top third. Like, they're just in that lower part of the point scoring places. And I don't know, man, they're just always kind of there, but no one is paying attention to them, and I don't know what's going on. It just seemed like Vinales just didn't. I don't know. Like, is he interested? Does he care? I feel like he cares. Like, he's out there trying, but at the same time, it just doesn't seem like he cares. God, I really just want him to be so much more aggressive, and because I've seen him be aggressive in the past. We've all seen him be aggressive in the past. We all know Maverick is one of the most talented riders out there, hands down. Like, it's not debatable. The dude is unreal on a motorcycle, but it's almost like he just gets hypnotized by whoever's in front of him, and it's like he rides their race instead of riding his race. And I don't know, like, anyone who's raced, like, everyone has done that at some point, but I hold those guys to a much higher standard because they are the best of the best of the best. Okay, these are the fucking, the movie Top Gun. Like, these dudes are the Top Gun riders on Earth. MotoGP is the top of the top, the creme de la creme, the baddest of the bad. And, when I see Maverick just what appears to be riding someone else's race or allowing someone else to kind of dictate his pace, no. To me, it just seems like it's unacceptable. He's better than that, and I want to see him be better than that. And he's moved on. He'll be with the Tech 3 KTM next year, as well Bastianini. Aprilia has 2 new riders on their factory team, and Bezzecchi, and the defending will be, and I hope, the number 1 plate sporting defending 2024 MotoGP world champion, Jorge Martin. So, look, from a talent standpoint, now there's no excuse for Aprilia. Okay? They arguably have the best rider on the grid, maybe outside of Marc Marquez. Hopefully Martin can develop that bike to kind of the next phase of its evolution. And I hope he can. I hope that he can. Because, I want to see, from a parity standpoint, to kind of break up, and I'm going to get to Ducati here, obviously, last, since they are the top dogs right now in the sport. But, I hope he can kind of break up, the Ducati dominance a little bit, as will this next group of factory riders, KTM, who finished second in the Constructors' Championship. My one word to describe KTM, I mean, come on, it's obvious. Pedro Acosta. Oh my God. Look, I get it. Pedro crashed a lot this year. I think he led all riders in crashes, not including testing. So practice sessions, qualifying sessions, full-length races, and sprint races. I think he led everybody in crashes. But he's also, at the time, a 19 who turned 20-year-old rookie. The only rookie who was out there this year. He had multiple podiums throughout the season. Yeah, he threw it away. Fuck it, who cares? Like, he's learning. He's young. He's the future of KTM. I don't think it's any secret right now. KTM as a brand is having some financial issues, in their corporate world. Hopefully they can overcome those. The last thing MotoGP needs is another factory leaving the series, like Kawasaki did however many years ago, 20 years ago or whatever it was. Suzuki four-ish years ago, whenever they left. We cannot have KTM bowing out because of, whatever their financial issues are at their corporate level. So, they've got, between Pedro Acosta and Brad Binder, they've got 2 amazing riders on their factory bikes. But let's be honest, KTM essentially has 4 factory bikes. They have now Ania Bastianini. And, oh, Jesus, now I'm absolutely spacing on, and Maverick Vinales on the Tech 3. All of those guys, except for Pedro, have won races. They're all race winners. But Pedro is the future, okay? He's the future of KTM, and, you can make the argument he may be the future of MotoGP. He has it all. He's got it all. Charisma, he's funny, he's insanely talented, he's hardworking, he's dedicated, he's exactly what you would want if you were a factory looking to hire a rider. He's young, he's got a lot of life left in him, from a racing standpoint. There's no reason, that he... I'm not even going to say it because that's too lofty. It's too lofty of something to put on someone that young. I'll just put it this way. He's not Marc Marquez. However, for being as young as he is, he's insanely talented. Now, granted, when Marquez first came into MotoGP, he was also extremely young. But the Honda was kind of battle tested, and the Honda was, arguably the best bike out there. you still got to ride the damn thing. You still got to win the races. He still had to learn. He had to get up to speed. But Marquez won races his rookie year, and then the rest is history, as they say. He is the GOAT as far as I'm concerned, and I'm a huge Rossi fan. And like any of these guys, just like in World Superbike, I'm a huge fan of all these riders. But what Marquez does on a bike it's just silly. It's silliness. So I think Pedro, to say that he can do what Marquez did, I don't think anyone can do that again. I just don't see that happening. But he's extremely talented, and he's probably, for his age right now and for the way these bikes are, he's probably one of the most talented young men that's out there. So that's KTM. Who knows what's going to go on with them? I think Pedro's going to be Pedro. He's going to be fighting for wins. It's just a matter of whether he can seal the deal. And he was close this year, quite a few times. He led a lot of laps at times. He had a lot of podiums, but he's got to curtail all those crashes. And he's going to be better than he was next season. Or he's going to be better than he was this past season, next season. So there, I don't see any reason why he can't be winning races. I think his biggest problem is going to be Ducati. So my word to describe Ducati is monopoly. Okay, they've had 8 bikes on the grid forever. They seem to have bottomless pockets. They have an endless amount of engineers. They have the best riders. They push the envelope with their aero. They are the reason why there are these tire pressure rules. They're the reason why the downforce with these aero packages is so extreme that these tires are like overheating. And that there's these tire penalties, okay, sidebar for a second before I get back to Ducati. I kind of feel like all of the tire pressure penalties and or regulations, it seemed like as the season went on, that shit just kind of got swept under the rug. I didn't really hear any more about it, I feel like, kind of halfway through the year. And especially down the stretch when Martin and Bagnaia and Marquez, okay, because he was in it, and Bastianini, all 4 of those guys were in it for quite a while. They all had a legit shot of winning. More so the top 3, Marquez, Bagnaia, and Martin. Once Martin and Bagnaia kind of separated themselves, were they even really talking tire pressure penalties anymore? I didn't really hear anything about it. I think Acosta had a 3rd place finish in one of the rounds. I'm spacing on which one, and there was a question that got brought up that he may have too much air in the tire, and then all of a sudden, nope, he's good. And we never heard anything more about it after that, which I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad. And the new Michelin tire will not be out there again in 25. So, in the back of everyone's mind, they're going to have to be cognizant of their tire pressures. That's just more stress on the engineers to set the pressures right. I wish these teams would just test this goddamn tire, the new one, the new Michelin front, and just get it going so we could it's in everyone's best interest, for one. And 2, it's better for the show itself as a whole, okay? Here's the way MotoGP works. The lights go out, everybody takes off, it's bar to bar, wheel to wheel, everyone's battling. Because everyone's so close, everyone's tire pressures start to spike. Well, you can't risk getting a penalty because that could cost you a race victory, a podium, a top 5, a top 10. It could cost you scoring points in the top 15, okay? So what does everybody do? Everybody, like a slinky, when you take a slinky and you spread it out, everybody kind of spreads out because you have to get cool air on that front tire to drop your pressure so you're back within the range that Michelin has said you have to operate within, and you don't want to risk getting a penalty. So then, like, the middle fucking half of the race, the first quarter of the race is action packed. Then half of the race is just boring as hell. Not all the time, but this is, it seemed like by and large. And then the last quarter of the race, everyone's like, fuck it. We're trying to finish as high as we can. We're trying to win. I'm trying to get 15th to get that single point. And then all the battles start back up again. Well, as a fan, as a customer, as a consumer of this content, why the fuck do I want to watch action that's only for half the race? In the middle half, it's just boring. I'll go make a smoothie and come back. It's better for the show as a whole if every race is competitive and people are battling from start to finish. Now, am I being a little dramatic? Like, is it that extreme? No, it's not that extreme, okay? It's not like everyone just single file follows everyone around for the, that middle half of the race. It's not quite that bad. Are there races where it's like that? Yeah, there are, all right? Which is why I said it in the first place, because it does happen. It's not all the time, but it does happen. And it's horrible for the show from a production standpoint. Fans don't want to watch that, all right? Diehard, obsessed morons like myself, I will watch it because I'm crazy about motorcycle racing, okay? But it's hard for me to try to sell this sport to like my friends who don't know shit about motorcycle racing, and they're like, how come no one's passed anyone for like 10 laps? And I'm like, well, and then I got to try to explain Aero, what it does to the, the tire and the downforce and the braking and then the tire pressure. That's fucking dumb. I'm done explaining that to the casuals. It's hard to sell it to the casuals, and I get it. People are like, oh, well, if they're casuals, who cares? I want to grow the sport. I want everyone to enjoy this sport as much as I do. All right? And it's easier to sell a sport when the show is better from start to finish. Hey, and while I'm on my fucking soapbox right now, I don't know who is actually directing these broadcasts. They're terrible. And I'm talking from the app. I can't speak for whatever TNT Sports does. In Europe, we don't have TNT Sports here, or maybe we do, but I watch it through the app. Do you guys know what a fucking split screen is? Are you serious? You have people fighting for their lives out there, for victories, for fucking podiums, for top fives. You have guys battling on the edge, risking everything. And then what do? You cut to the fucking garage to see what the crew's doing? Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Enough. Keep the fucking cameras on the riders. Nobody cares what's going on with Pecco's sister in the garage. Nobody. I don't care what Lynn Jarvis is doing in the Yamaha garage. I don't care. Interview them after the fucking race is over. Put them on camera before the race all you want. Stop cutting away during the action. I swear to God, I have almost punched my TV so many times yelling, what the fuck are you doing? All right, hang on. I got to take a chill pill for a second. I got all fired up because I'm so passionate about this sport. All right? I'm so passionate about this sport. And it just pisses me off when I got to miss a good battle that's taking place on track because some idiot director in a booth somewhere, hey, put it on camera 7 in the Ducati garage. Let's see what's going on there. Yeah, how about fuck off? How about show the fucking race that's only 45 minutes? Okay. Jesus. I did not have any of that written in my notes. I was not planning on talking about that. But I feel like, based on some of the Twitter comments I've seen out there, there are a lot of people who agree with me. We are sick and tired of whoever is directing the broadcast. Hey, I'll do it. It's easy. Show the fucking leaders the entire time, no matter what. And if you want to show anybody else ever, you go to a split screen. But you never, ever take the camera off a battle for first place ever. You don't do it. Split the fucking screen. This is not the 80s, okay? Or the 90s. Split screen technology is not difficult. It is not difficult. Okay? It's easy. So easy a caveman can do it. So, I don't know whoever's directing this, but obviously they're not a caveman because they can't seem to figure it out. And a lot of people like me are losing our minds, especially at the end of races when you are constantly cutting away to the fucking garages. All right, that's enough of that. So back to Ducati and their monopoly. I think it's going to be a good thing that they lost the Pramac team. You know, so now they got the VR46, they got Gresini, and then they got their factory guys, and that's it for Ducati. So, you know, is it going to make a huge difference? I mean, let's be honest. They have Marc Marquez now on the factory squad with Pecco Bagnaia. Like, are you shitting me, bro? I mean, my God. And I mean, everyone's already saying Marquez is just going to walk away with this title. But a lot of those same people said he was going to walk away with it this year. And, you know, he did. He got, 4 wins this year? It took him a while to kind of get up to speed. But he was hands down, because he was on the GP23, he was hands down the fastest person on the GP23. And it was a noticeable difference between how good last year's bike is to how good this current year's bike is. So putting him on the 25, the GP25, I can't wait. I love watching a healthy, motivated Marc Marquez. There is nothing that is more entertaining. And honestly, if I can be frank, sure, Pecco was a 2-time defending world champion. He missed out this year by a handful of points. I could easily argue he became an even better rider than he has been. Jorge Martin pushed him to limits that I don't think he had been to. Marc Marquez was able to push him to limits, and they did some legit battles on track that I don't think he was capable in the past of getting to. The 3 of those riders, if Martin can get that Aprilia working the way he wants it, oh man, look out. It's going to be a hell of a season in 2025. I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait for next year to get here. I just can't fucking wait. Oh. God, I gotta take a chill pill for a second. I got all fired up over that production stuff. It's stuff that, like, has nothing to do with racing, but from a content standpoint, it's bad TV. It's bad TV. It's frustrating for your audience. It's frustrating for your fans. Please, Dorna, please, whoever's directing the broadcast, split screen, baby. That's the word of the day, split screen. Split the screen. Split it. That's the show for tonight on this beautiful yet cold and kind of dry, oddly enough, Saturday night here in the old Pacific Northwest. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend. And I'll talk to you all later.